everyone. Welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Ajibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. We will be talking today, amongst other things, about lung disease in Nigeria, and I think it's a really, really important topic. I have a guest with me, but before I introduce him, I want to say a few things. In the Ministry of Health, under the Non-Communicable Disease Unit, we're looking at 4 main conditions. One of them is cancer. The other is diabetes. The third is cardiovascular disease, not in this order. And the fourth is lung conditions. And with good reason, too. These are really serious conditions that we as Nigerians and black people are facing at a higher rates than the average Caucasian or Arab or other parts of the world. So we will really want to focus on these things and really see what can be done. Now remember, our focus is not so much to educate doctors so they can treat you better, because they're already doing that. Where our focus is on you, the layperson, the man on the street, so to speak. What you need to know, what you need to do, not just for yourself, but for your family and for your loved ones as well, to take care of your health and to ensure that you live a longer life. Remember, we always say this. The WHO, the World Health Organization, says that there are only 2, that's just 2, obstacles to vibrant health and longevity. 1, ignorance. 2, complacency. And I think we as Nigerians have a boatload of both of them. So we're trying to address those things. So please stay tuned, listen tight. If you have any questions, type them in, send them in onto our social media platforms, and we'll get back with you. All right, so let's introduce our guest today. I'm really, really honored to have Dr. Onoha on our, have I got that right, sir? Okay, it's close enough. On the show today, Dr. Onoha is the Chief Consultant Physician at Gwarinpa General Hospital, and he's also a pulmonologist, so he's the right person for this show today. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
Thank you, sir. More mine than yours, for sure. So we've talked a lot. I've visited your office several times, and we've had some really interesting conversations. And I like your whole perspective on health. It's not just about what the doctor can do for you, it's also what you can do for yourself. And from your vast experience working with, not just in pulmonology, but in several areas as well, cardiology and general medicine, you've been able to see that a lot of the recovery and the determinants of a person's, the prognosis, so to speak, of a person's disease or health condition is determined by what the person knows and what the person does, right?
Yes.
So we're going to go into that a little bit more, but why would you say lung disease or pulmonary disorders, and we're going to give you a few examples now, but why would you say that they are such a problem in Nigeria?
Lung diseases are problems in Nigeria right now because the decline in socioeconomic status of people.
Socioeconomic status?
Yes.
Okay.
And then that has to do with where you live, clustering, number of people in an environment, number of people in the room. All those ones has impact. Because lung disease has to do also with breathing in of air,
right.
The air getting into you, and entering the lungs, and the exchanges being made. What are these exchanges? Oxygen coming in from the environment into your body or into your blood, and then carbon dioxide coming out of your blood into the lungs and into the environment. So a lot of other things has to do also come into play. The purity of the air you are breathing in. And we know that with increasing industrialization, there's a lot of pollution.
Yes.
So, and it has to do with government. A lot of this has to do with government. There's little you as an individual can do if you live in an environment with so many industries and they are coming out with their wastes. They have gaseous waste, you have the one in the water, and so on. So, but since we're talking about lungs, we are more concerned with gaseous waste.
Right.
Okay? So
And also our environment too. I mean, we mustn't forget that we're in a tropical environment, tropical country where you have all these airborne diseases and organisms that are just waiting to get into our bodies and all that, which maybe people in the Western world may not face as much, would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, infections is more a problem because we have more vectors.
Okay.
That is insects that carry infections. We have more of that because the temperature tends to promote microbes and insects. So we have plenty of that here. So that also deriving from there, infection is our problem. More so, I mean, if you compare to the temperate countries.
Okay.
So we have an increased burden of infectious diseases. And lung infection is very common.
So we're looking at TB, which is tuberculosis. That's a long-standing one. Everybody knows about that.
Chronic.
Although, hopefully, is it going down, would you say?
But it was going down. It was going down, but it's not really going down now. It was going down until HIV. When HIV came, then there was this upsurge.
Right.
And then I can't say that we're winning now. Because it's only about 15% of those who have TB tend to get into the record or present in the hospital.
Right.
So a lot of them go from place to place. Some of them never even get to the hospital.
Some don't believe it's a medical condition.
They believe it's an arrow.
It's an
In
arrow.
fact, when I was at Luz, I saw a patient who told me it was an arrow. That he was sleeping and he had a dream where somebody shot an arrow into his chest. And since that time he's been coughing. But okay, good story, but we need to do our own investigations. We did our investigation and it was TB. So I don't know the connection between that, but you see, there are so many people like that, and this was a graduate.
Oh, a graduate.
It was a graduate. So you see, talk less of those who
have not been to school, who are illiterate.
So they will not even bother to come to hospital.
Right.
So quite a large number of those with TB, and that's why the thing is still festering.
So TB is one, and I know we don't want to focus on the disease themselves, but I think it's important that we just give people an overall view. Other infections, I know with sickle cell disease, I know there's a big problem with certain organisms that, because children with sickle cell disease, their immune systems are depleted, and so they tend to have a lot of chest infections. As a matter of fact, one of the top two causes of death in sickle cell disease is acute chest syndrome in sickle cell disease. So but again, pneumonia, older people die from pneumonia, and asthma is another thing we're going to be talking about. So we're getting to the end of this section. We're going to jump into some of those, but more importantly, we'll talk about some of the lifestyle factors. We've talked about socioeconomic, but we're going to look at other lifestyle factors that we can adopt to help us to, live a healthier life. So do not go away. We will be right back. Welcome back. We are talking about lung disease in Nigeria, and you may be wondering why is it such a big deal? Why should we be caring about our lungs? I know you hear us talk about cardiovascular disease a lot and cancer and other things, but a real overview is that for your cells, for your tissues, for your organs to get to be healthy, for them to live long, they need to have oxygen. Above everything else, they need to have oxygen, and the way they get oxygen is through the lungs. The lungs has to get the air in from the atmosphere, put the air with the oxygen in the blood, and the blood has to go to the heart, and the heart has to pump the blood all the way to your cells in your brain or your kidneys or your legs, whatever it is. If those cells are not getting enough oxygen, they're going to get weak. Some will die, and some may just be more prone to infection and disease and things like that. So it's really, really important for longevity and just to have a healthy life, really, to have enough oxygenation in the cells of your body. So again, we're with Dr. Onoha, who is the Chief Consultant Physician, Gwarinpa General Hospital. Sir, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, so we talked about TB, we mentioned a little bit about chest infection and sickle cell disease. Let's talk about probably the commonest lung condition, which is pneumonia in Nigeria. In your practice, I know you've seen quite a lot, both in childhood, which is more the acute form, and then in old age too, which, by the way, as we were discussing this, we know a lot of elderly people tend to die of pneumonia because it's a gradual, a gradual failing of the lungs over a period of time. They're not able to, how does that happen? How does that work?
Thank you. Okay. Pneumonia is a very common lung condition, lung disease, and it has to do with your own innate immunity, your ability to overcome, because the air we breathe in is not sterile. There's organisms, and why is it that you are not coming down with pneumonia? Why is it that I'm not coming down with pneumonia? For those who are watching us now. So now, the issue being that once the immune system is weak, and you happen to inhale these organisms that are commonly known to cause pneumonia, then the inflammation will start. And usually is like an acute inflammation.
Inflammation is basically the body's response.
The body's response to some foreign agent or injurious substance or organisms.
Right.
And so that goes on. And because it elicits an acute type of response, so this response is what we call inflammation. So it goes through, and within a few days it's over. But of course, we need to treat, because the body alone is not able to mount the offense that will eliminate these offending organisms. So we need to give treatment, like antibiotics, to take care of.
And a quick point there, if the antibiotics are not given at the right time, sometimes the patient does recover. Maybe they're in the village, they can't travel this long distance to the hospital. Sometimes they do recover, but what happens?
Well, what happens is if you're not treated, it still depends on your own immune system. If your immune system is not able to eliminate it, then it goes into a chronic phase. Okay, and then that's when you tend to begin to have lung destruction, because it goes into chronic response, and this chronic response are known to damage organs. And then with healing with what we call fibrosis, which can cause collapse of the lung eventually and all that. And that is because the person was not adequately treated when he had the acute phase.
Right.
So it can terminate in death, or it goes into a chronic phase.
Right.
And the elderly people, they tend to not do well with pneumonia. First of all, they are predisposed to having pneumonia.
Why?
And then because they don't breathe, the immune system is down, number one. Secondly, they don't breathe well. They breathe shallow. They have this shallow breathing.
Why do you think that happens? Is it because they don't?
Because they are no longer physical.
Okay.
And they just sit down in one place, and then there's no more demand for oxygen. Okay. If I run, the body has greater demand for oxygen, and my brain is forced to tell the lungs to do more. So there's this breathing, and the breathing tends to be full. Okay. So, but when you're at rest and you are breathing shallow breathing, okay, it means the lung, the way it's designed is that when you inhale, the areas, pockets that we call alveoli, the pockets of lung cells that are inflated, that air gets into the place, that is the place that blood flow will go through. So the place that is not, those alveoli or those cells that are not inflated, blood tends to shunt those areas towards those areas that are opened. So now, these areas that are not opened, if microbes gets there and starts the activity, inflammation and all those things, the sickness, disease, the drug that you give, no matter how potent, you have taken sputum sampled, you have tested, you have identified the organism, they have told you the antibiotics that are sensitive, and then you are giving this. Yet the patient is not responding, is not improving. Why? Because the lung inflation is still poor.
So the blood flow is not getting to
so the blood
those.
flow is not carrying your powerful antibiotics to those sites.
I see. So there are two things I'm hearing now. One is that the blood is not getting to those sites and therefore not getting enough oxygen, so those cells can't really...
Not delivering your antibiotics.
And also
the immune component that comes with it.
Exactly. So it's both what your body is providing to mount up a defense and also what the antibiotics
that they're also given. They're not getting. Blood is not getting there.
So the effective agents have...
We just continue to fester and increase.
And multiply.
Eventually it becomes systemic, infecting all the organs of the body.
So would you say that elderly people, because we were talking about this with elderly people, I see we only have a minute left.
Okay.
Would you say that elderly people, by increasing their physical activity, can go a long way to reducing the risk of pneumonia?
Yes, definitely. So
just by
increasing their physical activity.
Because that helps to expand the lungs more.
Because they cannot jog like other people, so they have to specifically go into breathing exercise.
I see.
Now, if I ask you to breathe now, most likely most adults don't breathe well. When you breathe, your tummy should rise, the way children breathe.
Wow.
But adults, when we become adults, somehow we begin to breathe in such a way that it's only the lung that's gone. So when you do that, the lower part of the lung are not properly ventilated, they are not properly aerated.
But if you breathe properly...
If you breathe properly, then and the blood vessels that carry the blood for the exchange are more in the lower part of the lungs.
I see.
So when you are breathing, shallow breathing, and you are breathing chest type of breathing, you are just ventilating the middle part of the lung and the upper part of the lung. The lower part of the lung that carries much of the blood vessels doesn't get much blood supply.
Who knew?
So like when you breathe, it should be like this. Instead of...
So you can actually feel.
Now breathing. Okay.
So, and I'm just doing that because you just taught me to do that.
So,
normally I probably wouldn't do that.
Exactly.
All right. So we're going to have to break here and then we'll come back later. So stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back. Okay, we're talking about lung diseases in Nigeria, and in this segment we want to talk about what is known as COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which you probably have heard about before. Bottom line is that air has to flow. Air has to flow in your lungs, air has to get into your organs and all that. Anyway, you get the picture. But Doc, let's talk about that a little bit, because when I think about COPD, I think about the airways not being tighter. They're not responsive, they're not as elastic, and for whatever reason, we know about, and we mentioned smoking and something like asthma, but let's go into that a little bit.
Okay, COPD is a disease of the airway. In which,
it's more like an umbrella term, isn't it?
Yes, it comprises of two basic pathology.
Okay.
Emphysema and chronic bronchitis.
Okay.
Okay, so those two are what we put together as a COPD.
Okay.
Now, it's not quite different from asthma in its manifestation, except that it tends to come late. If I see somebody who is 26 years and is having breathlessness, like last week, this Monday, I saw a patient, I misheard them. They said, I thought I had COPD. Now I said, no, this cannot be COPD at this age. So, but it wasn't COPD they were trying to say.
Because you got the word chronic. Chronic means that it has happened over years, even decades.
No, not necessarily. This particular disease,
yes,
it tends to come in years.
Okay.
Okay? It gives you time to misbehave in terms of smoking and all. It's not everybody who has COPD actually got it because they smoked, but smoking is number one thing we can call, cause. It's a contributor to it.
Okay.
The other thing is that air pollution. When I was in Lagos, I saw quite a number of people with COPD who were not smokers.
And some young people?
Yeah, no, they are not usually young people.
Yeah, no, exactly. Okay.
At least like 45 years and above.
I see.
Okay. It depends on the intensity of the damage anyway. If you smoke heavily or you live in a place that is heavily polluted, you tend to come earlier. But rarely we use somebody in his 20s that has COPD.
And as you said earlier, Doc, these are things that we don't have much control over our larger environment.
Yes.
And so if you're living in Lagos or a busy place, is there anything that you can do within your tiny circle of influence that can, reduce the likelihood of you having COPD? Are you just doomed to have it because you live in an environment like that?
That's where lifestyle will come in.
Okay.
So lifestyle in terms of what you eat, what you drink. Okay, so if you have a lot of vegetables, fresh vegetables, fruits, you take a lot of water, so you tend to be able to detoxify better. So detoxification is just removing those toxins that are entering into your system. So, and then if you also have, if you do breathing exercise, you also tend to flush out respiratory toxins.
I see.
Yes. So the breathing exercise, like there's a form of yoga that teaches you how to breathe in various positions. You breathe in. I don't want to do it because I've not been doing it for some time, so that phlegm doesn't fly out. Yeah.
Okay.
If you are alone in your house, you can do that. You take in breath and release it as fast as you can. You do it like 10 times.
Is there a website one can go to and actually see this?
There's this they call what's the name? Art of Living.
Art of Living. A-R-T.
Art
of Living.
Art of Living.
L-I-V-I-N-G.
So they'll teach you how to breathe. In fact, I learned it from there.
Oh, wow.
That's where I also learned this tummy breathing. And being a pulmonologist, I saw the sense in it. Oh, wow. And I started looking at adults, and I saw that most adults don't breathe properly. And when you compare them to children, the children tend to breathe with their tummy. And breathing with your tummy gets in more oxygen into your blood. Okay. So, what COPD, as I was saying, it looks more like asthma. It's just that it comes later, and not only that, it tends not to be reversible, unlike asthma.
We haven't spoken about asthma, by the way. Maybe in another session we will.
Asthma, when you have the attacks, you can get to the stage where it's gone and you don't feel anything, and they do test. Nothing is showing that this person ever had this issue. But it's not so with COPD. COPD will always leave something to let you know that this person is having an obstructive airways disease. Okay? And the longer it is, the worse it is. Because in asthma, in asthma, it's just an allergic component. But this one, there's a large amount of inflammatory targeted at infection. So infection is very important in exacerbation for COPD, and not always so for asthma. And
you were mentioning too that in COPD there's a change in the architecture, and there's probably fibrosis and stiffening and hardening.
Exactly, in the airway there's some level of fibrosis.
In our next session, in our next time you come here, we have to talk about asthma to a larger extent, because I think more and more people are falling down. I'm coming up with it, and of course maybe we need to talk about COPD some more. But unfortunately, time has gone. I just don't know how this time just flies by, Doc. I mean, is it because we're getting older, or I mean, how do you explain this? Anyway, don't worry about it. So, folks, thank you for joining us. Remember, we are here to address health conditions that Nigerians most often fall prey to. And you can go to our website, you can go to the NTA website and check out all these things. Remember that every Friday we give free treatment, free supplements and support for children with brain disorders and sickle cell disease. So just check us up at the Brain and Body Foundation. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again next week. God bless.